Performing a randomized clinical trial based on a nutritional intervention can be a real challenge, so before starting one, it is necessary to consider different aspects. These include the study population, the characteristics of the care providers, the study design, the details of the intervention in the control group, the randomization procedure, the blinding process, and the blinding mechanism. The selection criteria for the study population in a randomized clinical trials must be specific. Must have a high probability of benefiting from the intervention. If a disease is studied with different subtypes, it is necessary to define in which one the intervention will be applied, in addition to using a unified evaluation scale to assess the improvement of the disease. In randomized clinical trials based on non-pharmacological interventions, it is desirable to describe the characteristics of the care providers and, if applicable, the characteristics of the environment in which the intervention is delivered, as the experience of the care providers may influence the outcomes. It is also desirable to provide information on the qualifications of the care provider, years of practice, number of interventions performed and specific training prior to the start of the trial, in order to allow the results to be applicable and reproducible. In randomized clinical trials based on a nutritional intervention, it is sometimes difficult to identify and standardize the elements of the intervention that function as active ingredients. In this sense, in order to carry out an effective intervention, it is necessary to identify the components of the intervention that can modify the outcomes. Subsequently, the researcher must adapt them to the characteristics of the target population and, finally, standardize the intervention. To choose the study design, it is recommended to first determine whether the intervention will be carried out in groups or individually. In case the intervention cannot be carried out in individuals, the recommendation will lean toward the cluster design. If more than 2 interdependent interventions will be used in the study, the factorial design is the best choice. The crossover design will be very appropriate if a stable disease is studied over time wherein effects of the intervention are observed in a short time and are not of a permanent nature. The parallel design will allow researchers to compare 2 or more unrelated interventions. Intervention in the control group. If a therapy exists for the disease under investigation, it is suggested to compare the intervention with the best available therapy. If no therapy exists or the intervention is not comparable, and if the intervention can be blinded, it is recommended to use a placebo, whether the results are subjective or objective. Finally, if it is not possible to blind the intervention and the results can be seen quickly, it is recommending a waiting list. It is recommended that the authors ask themselves 3 basic questions to determine which type of randomization is most appropriate for the study. The first question is the study population large? If the answer is yes, simple randomization is the best solution. The second question is the sample small, is the recruitment time long, or do the authors need the same number of study subjects in both groups? Block randomization will be the best option if the answer is yes. The second question is, are the covariates important to the intervention? If so, stratified randomization or minimization is the best option. The blinding process can be much easier if a drug or nutritional supplement is involved, but when food is involved, it can be more difficult. Among the proposals for blinding a nutritional plan, it is included that of elaborating a placebo diet to solve this problem. According to their proposal, the sham diet should be in relation to the intervention of equal degree of difficulty, with a similar restriction of staple and non-staple foods. The duration and intensity of the advice should be equivalent and should not affect other nutritional components. They should only differ in those considered as active principles. Please remember: register the clinical trial in a regulatory registry or database. Follow consort's recommendations for reporting clinical trial results. It is very important to select the consort extension that best suits the characteristics of the intervention.